Yep, we are live, and hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is uh, a podcast. So, welcome to our live podcast, which is called the Open Source Redefined. And we are featuring Cal.com today, and we have co founder Pierre Richelsen from Cal here. Hey Pierre, great to have you. Thank you for taking your time. And this is a very short podcast, like for 30 minutes. And the whole podcast will be revolving around your journey with Cal.com and how you have achieved different milestones in your journey. Like within 2 years, you have achieved a lot. I've read some of your blogs as well. That really inspired me, like how you basically balance everything around open source. So we'll be talking about your journey and the Web3 angle as well, Orange DAO, like how it is linked to Orange DAO, and you can share about it, and also like the message you want to share with the maintainers. So we have an awesome guest here, Pierre. So he has been, he has been into entrepreneurship since so long, and he's an on-deck fellow as well, head of product at on-deck, and then he built his own startup, cal.com, with his fellows. So would you like to share about your journey and tell more about what you are doing right now, Pierre?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the intro. No, I mean, my journey is, as you said before, I did YC back in 2019. I did OnDeck in 2020, and then I joined OnDeck as head of product in end of 2020. And and then before joining OnDeck, I was running a hiring business called leanhire.com, and that one was connecting. Initially, it was connecting YC founders with companies, but later it was connecting contractors to join as full-time employees. And with that product, we needed a proper scheduling tool to help us make the connections, make the meetings between contractors and companies. And so we were just looking around and we didn't find like an open and accessible solution for us to build that marketplace. Like Calendly is a great product, but it's more like a consumer-facing product where people have a link and share it, but it's not like good for marketplaces. And I needed something where, like, kind of like a developer tool where I could just change every style, change every line of code, and make it feel like it's a part of my product. And to my surprise, there was just no project out there that was doing something like that. I mean, there's an open source alternative for Firebase, for Intercom, but to my surprise, there was none for Calendly. So we started doing that. But today it's more than just an alternative. We do so many things in terms of like enterprise infrastructure that companies like Calendly, Savvycal, and Motion are not doing because of they're not open source, and open source obviously gives a big leverage into these enterprise industries.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That really explains pretty much everything what you're doing right now. And you mean like your inspiration was Calendly, or was there any other inspiration before you started to build cal.com?
No, I mean, as I said before, we needed something and Calendly was not working for us, right? Like it's not, we didn't set out to build like a Nuka-Cola that tastes the same as Coca-Cola. No, we literally couldn't use what was out there, and then we decided to build it in-house and then eventually turn it into a proper business.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, you were trying to solve a problem which was pretty much faced by everybody, and you tried to simplify the whole, like the product, and you built cal.com.
Yeah, exactly. That was kind of like the origin story.
Awesome. So, like, I have talked to a lot of maintainers who have built revolutionary projects, and like your journey has been pretty different. Like, I see you as an entrepreneur before you got into open source. So, may I ask this question: if like how like entrepreneurship helped you in building such a great product, or do you think that entrepreneurship has helped you in a lot of ways to start cal.com?
Well, I mean, this is my I don't know, 20th project and fourth startup. With, I mean, obviously some failures along the way. I'm not a born open source, what's it called, like an open source maximalist. I mean, I got into tech with WordPress and like, you know, making WordPress themes and plugins and websites, and like that kind of got me excited about the web. So like my origin story is basically still in open source, but not in a sense where I'm like, everything needs to be open source. The previous 3 companies, projects would not be better if they were open source, right?
Yeah.
From my perspective, and I wrote a blog post about it, you need to use the tool that is best for the job, right?
Yeah.
Like you need a hammer for hitting a nail. And a lot of the times, open source is the best tool, but a lot of times open source is not the best tool for the job. And
Yeah.
so if you're planning to build, let's say, something where the technology is not the primary thing, but like the network, like an open source Uber would probably not really work better than
Yeah.
the actual Uber, right? Because the
Yeah.
Uber has the value proposition in the cars and the drivers that they work with. But for us, an open source alternative to, you know, the scheduling product is actually better, because you get the same experience, plus you can white label, customize, and self-host, and especially for highly regulated industries, governments and nonprofits, it's just it's much better. So that's how you should think of building something with open source. And that's also, if you take a look, why some of these open source projects take off, because they do something better than the existing software, and that's why people get excited.
Yeah, definitely. That really digests like everything. Like it's more about the product and what is the exact use case of the project. Will it help developers or will it help end users, or in what ways it's going to help? Yeah, that I agree with that. Yeah, and also like recently, I mean, just to let everybody know here, like 1 million milestone of cal.com. So it has been like 1 million attempted bookings in the past week. Like they have crossed recently in the past week. So like, would you like to add more to it, Pierre? Like what was your like experience? Like how did you feel like, you know, an open source project like cal.com achieve that milestone where it's pretty hard? There are lots of challenges. Of course, we'll be talking about it for the next few minutes, but how did you feel like when it happened?
Yeah, it was very surprising, because initially we had that milestone for like end of the year, kind of like as a goal, and but we had one enterprise customer who was just pulling in a ton of bookings. So I think the learning is that sometimes you can't really predict growth, because you have a lot of these step functions where just a single contract, a single customer, a single, you know, new network that you tap into can just really spike your traffic, your traction. So it's really hard to say we will be making X amount of bookings in 2020 and then X amount of bookings in 2021. And so that was a very interesting learning. But also that just shows how much weight these whales have, right? If you have a consumer business and the average, you know, user is a SaaS consumer that does, let's say, 20 bookings a month or something, to get to 1 million bookings with 20 bookings per person, that takes a lot of people. But if you somehow find these big organizations that, you know, governments schedule millions of bookings in a year, or medical companies or something, or universities, then you really start to see the adoption like quadruple within weeks potentially. And that's really exciting, because I mean, obviously SaaS businesses are really predictable. Like normally SaaS businesses are really predictable, but with open source, you just have you can tap into the enterprise space, which most SaaS businesses are like locked out of. Yeah.
Definitely. That's a great thing to know. And also like it has been open source since 2 years, I believe, like cal.com. I think since the beginning it's
It's
open
always
source.
been open source.
Yeah. Since the beginning
I
it's
mean, the
been open
company
source.
it's not 2 years. We're actually like 10 months old, so it's very young.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So it's been 10 months and like it's open source. Like how did contributions help you? Like, you know, were there any external contributions which really helped you and made an impact?
I would say 90%, maybe 95% of the code base was written by the core team, which is not that unusual for any open source project. But that being said, the amount of code is not the important metric. The quality and the timing whatsoever, and the details make it just such a round product. Within weeks, we got 27 translations for all kinds of, like, from Spanish to Portuguese to Chinese to Russian to Ukrainian to Arabic and Hebrew. So it's really incredible to see not only code improvements, but also all kinds of different contributions, whether it's translations or fixing typos. Sometimes you just forgot a space or something, or forgot a dot, and people love to help out and be part of the community. We have over 100 contributors. In fact, I think almost every engineer we hired was a previous contributor, so that's really cool. I mean, maybe like 5 out of 7 people we hired were early contributors, and that's really great because they get to know the product and the team, but also for us as a company, it just really improves the hiring funnel because we already know how that person works and feels and likes the team, and that just makes it so much easier to extend an offer to join the team and be part of it, and be paid to contribute.
Yeah, that's a great way. I mean, hiring problem is solved, and you don't need any hiring agencies or any help for hiring.
If you benchmark startups against each other, everyone has the same problem, which is hiring. And if you have an unfair advantage, you are already leapfrogging your not only competition but also the entire industry. And open source is just brilliant because of this nature of trying and testing the waters. And we couldn't prevent people from contributing. That's the beauty. If someone makes a PR, they make a PR, and then you go from there.
Awesome. So that, I think, contributors who are really listening to this one, so it's a news for you. There are different open source projects, and open source projects like Cal will help you to land a job. If you are looking for a job, you can work on what you actually love to do, right? That's the advantage for contributors as well. So that's really good to know. And also to follow up the question about the contributions, you talked about non-code contributions like translations and the fixing small bugs, typos, and you can say everything around non-code. So how does non-code contribution help cal.com in some or the other way?
Yeah, as I said before, translations was huge. We do have now a translations agency which kind of fills in the blanks whenever a contributor doesn't have time or something. Obviously, translations is an ongoing endeavor, so it's not like you do it once and then it's done. I mean, being part of the community, helping people, being replying to questions, helping people get started. If you don't need to be an engineer, but maybe you have some experience with DevOps, so you know how to spin up a Postgres database and help people out. Or maybe you just want to answer questions to set up a booking or how to add an integration. So we all know these community forums. So we have a Slack where people just jump in and ask questions, and sometimes they get an answer from the community.
Awesome. So to sum up the whole thing, what is the suggestion you want to give to the maintainers who are pretty new into this space and who focus on code? So what do you want to tell them about non-code contributions, how important it is?
It's definitely on the lower priority because, I mean, at the end of the day, you need to build a product. No one cares about you as a community if the product doesn't do anything or help you. For us, it was always the problem first, then the community. And we don't run really community events. It just happens that people enjoy using the product and then asking questions. And obviously some people have a lot of issues. And then it's a good feedback funnel for us to improve. certain things. Like I would not want to build this company without a community, because it's just so easy to talk to people and just DM someone in Slack if they have an issue.
Awesome. So yeah, that's great to know about your journey. So we'll be talking about Web3 aspect in this second half. So if anybody is listening after this live session, so it will be posted on different platforms like YouTube and LinkedIn, or maybe like podcast platforms. So in the second half, we'll be talking about Davos and Web3 and how it actually originated. So before that, there's a follow-up question on uh, Cal.com is an open startup, and I've seen the metrics and the website through Jitsi. You have all the things tracked in your company. So, there's a question here. Could you tell us why you decided to function in that manner?
Yeah, for sure. Funny enough, the /open page was pretty much the first, maybe second page we launched back in last year, April or something. Just because I've been a big fan of open startups. We have been fairly public previously with previous startups, but I never really pulled the trigger. And being an open source company, your code is open. Like your whole IP basically is visible to anyone. So I don't really see the point of being very hyper secret about other stuff that's even less relevant. There's many things where, let's say, the code is of a higher priority than another metric. So if you already open source the code, it's weird to not open source the metric, which is even less relevant. So for us, it was very obvious it's surprising that not many open source companies are that open and transparent. And my line of thinking is actually I'm really bad at lying. So I don't want to remember who I lied to, right? Mm-hmm. And being open and having an open startup is it's impossible to lie, because I couldn't lie about the metric if it's literally public, right? So I don't need to. If I was a liar, I need to remember, okay, I told you 1 million bookings, but maybe I told another person 500,000 bookings. And now it's so you're removing a lot of, not only lying, but sometimes you just say stuff on accident. But if it's open, then people, can check themselves, and also whether it's investors or customers or even employees who are joining. A lot of times people join the Zoom call and be like, okay, we know basically what's up. And then they start asking the real questions. In an investor call, let's say, instead of asking how many bookings do you have, because that's already public, they go into detail about the questions that are not public and about the roadmap and the future of the company. So it definitely helps a ton. I wouldn't want to go back. In fact, I want to add more metrics. If you have any ideas, and please post them in the chat of what else you want to see. We want to, be as transparent as maybe how public companies do reports. Maybe we just introduce a new way of going public without an exchange, act like a public company without being a public company. That could be a very interesting way of running a company, and make it super easy for us to go public as well, right? Because you're already used to all the auditing and publicity. So maybe that's something we can look into. No, but not only the data, we also open source the salaries. We have
I've seen
global salaries. So we don't pay people based on the location. We pay them based on experience and output. It's always been the way I was thinking, because I wrote a blog post about that as well. Because at the end of the day, it's only fair if people get paid for what they work. And if you're a genius engineer and you live in, somewhere out there, and it's I don't want to do the detective work and see if you move regions, right? If someone from, let's just say, I have a lot of friends in San Francisco, and obviously the rent is way higher than, in somewhere in India. But I also have friends who move back and forth between India, San Francisco, India, San Francisco, India. Do you change your salary every 4 months? Do you keep the ESF salary? Now that's unfair for the people in San Francisco. Do you keep the India salary? Now you can't live in San Francisco. So it's it's really hard, and I think there's no clear like best option, but this is the option that just feels best for us, and is
Yeah.
also, I think, the most attractive, because now we are overpaying in niche markets. Not
Yeah.
niche markets. Let's say not niche markets, but like we're overpaying in less expensive markets.
Yeah.
But that also means that by overpaying, we get literally the best talent from that region. Whereas if
Yeah.
we use the same salary, we get the worst talent in San Francisco. And as a company, I
Makes
want to
sense.
have the best talent, right?
Yeah.
So it's we have, you know, a lot of people from Latin America. We have people in India. We have anywhere, literally, I
Yeah.
think 10 time zones. And it's also the problem in, let's say, with the Bay Area. Even if you compete on salary, it's really hard to keep engineers because there's just so much VC capital around them and so many new ideas and entrepreneurs. And a lot of the times people optimize for other things than salary, right?
Yeah.
So even if you may match them, and we've got applications from junior engineers in the Bay Area for like 150K or something,
Yeah.
we couldn't pay that. And even if we would pay that, there is a high chance that this person would just leave within a year.
Yeah.
So
True.
that's just not, it's no interest for us to be hiring in these hyper competitive markets, especially
Yeah.
as we're getting a ton of amazing talent from other regions.
That's really great. That's really a great point, to be honest. Like one of the best points you mentioned. It's more about the talent and how you are sustaining your own team, and plus, like not focusing on region or region-wise
Yeah,
payment. So that's really
yeah,
great to know. And I think this will inspire a lot of people who are trying to build a strong team rather than just building stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah,
like I would like to go into the web3 angle of things, like in the latest release of cal.com. So we got to know about the web3, and you can use crypto, which is orange token, to schedule meetings and stuff like that. So can you throw more light on that, like how you got inspired? So was it like, did you plan before, like about web3, or how did it like start?
yeah, for sure. I think the origin is, I went to the crypto conference in Portugal, in Lisbon, like in the summer of this year. And I'm into crypto for like 4 or 5 years now. Like I pretty much, like, back in the days there was only Bitcoin before Ethereum. Like I joined, like, we didn't even call it crypto. There was just Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I really got interested in that. I didn't buy too much because I was a really broke student. But yeah, I got some early experience. But I didn't really focus on the entire industry for the next, like, after, getting used to Bitcoin. I pretty much missed out on the whole Web3, on the first Web3 wave, because I was just focused on, building a startup, and there's just, you can only focus on end
Yeah.
things, and I didn't look into like Sushi Swap and all the different protocols that were
Yeah.
launching. And I was also a bit of very skeptical initially, like, as most people, like, do I need a coin for every single thing? But my line of thinking now changed to, like, a coin is just a name for a certain share. And our company has shares, right? If we call the share a share of Cal.com or Calcoin, whatever, there's not really a big difference, other than a classic share of a company gives you information, right, and maybe some other things. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how we call things, as long as they have the same mechanics. And if you really look into the mechanics of crypto, I'd say, like, this year was like the year of the DAO. You start to realize that you can now do things which you couldn't do before, and that's why I'm always getting interested. Which also goes back to the first point of, like, use the tool that's best for the solution. I don't want to do something with crypto that I could already do with fiat.
Yeah.
But now I can do something with crypto which I cannot do with fiat. And so that's something where any entrepreneur or innovator should, like, get excited, because suddenly, there's a new thing that was not able to be done 5-10 years ago. So that got me back interested in DAOs. I'm not super like involved in NFTs. I'm not like into art. Maybe that's just me, but like I do love the idea of NFTs for like lifetime membership, like tokens. Like I'm in the Orange DAO, and I got like an NFT badge to be part of the Orange DAO. So and that one's non-transferable. So like I'm very interested in non-transferable NFTs as well, because I think that just could replace like birth certificates or university degrees or something, right? So the space is super massive and growing. It's probably growing as fast or maybe faster than the web back in the days. And if you see something growing that fast, it's crazy to not at least tip your toe into it. So long story short, we launched a Web3 app pretty soon after the open source, the crypto conference in Lisbon. And the reason being is I talked to a lot of these DAO members and even DAO creators. I talked to the founder of Gitcoin, Kyle, and some other people at Gitcoin, and they just said scheduling is a freaking mess, because obviously you have sometimes 20, 100, sometimes 1,000 people in a DAO, and signing a proposal is done on the blockchain, right? That's the whole point. But coming to a consent requires humans to have a conversation. Do we want to go this way? Do we want to go that way, right? So in that regard, you need to really schedule people and get them on board with your proposal, and that creates a new whole range of problems, because technically, if you have a link to join a video room, you don't know if that person is actually a member of the DAO. If you have a link to an Eventbrite or however you want to organize it, there's always the risk that non-DAO members join and say things which could change the direction of the proposal. So now with the Web3 application for Cal, you can send a link only, and people can only join if they have the token of the DAO. And in the future versions, which we hopefully keep on updating, the more people use it, the more resources we throw onto this app. But the more people use it, we could see something like you need to hold at least X amount of tokens, or for an amount of time, like please hold it longer than 3 months to be able to get invited. And so you can really program who's attending, who's joining, and that's really exciting.
That's good to know. I'm really excited. Maybe we can have a different chat on your Web3 aspect in future, maybe once we are clear with a lot of things. And that really inspires me, your thought process with the Web3 and with the product. That really impresses me. I mean, our team was also discussing, like the community team was discussing about your open startup. So we were casually discussing in our meetings, and they were also really excited about like how it is working. And like coming to the cal.com again, to the product. So like there might be a lot of people who don't know about cal.com but might be still listening to this podcast. So would you like to share some exclusive features or anything that differentiate from the current or the past scheduling system like we had before 2020?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the elephant in the room is open source, like being able to just change things the way you want to, contribute, make the product better. I mean, how many times have you had a problem with a closed source piece of software and you were like, I want to join this company just to fix this, right? Like we've all been there. Now you don't need to join. You can just open a ticket and contribute. So that's obviously the elephant in the room, which is vastly different. We're playing a different market. We're playing a different game, and we have a different focus than any other scheduling tool out there. But on a product side, obviously we have a ton of things like the Web3 integration that no other company has, the Huddle integration, which is a Web3 video protocol, the Tandem integration that we have, which is like a remote first office product. We have opt-in bookings, which means even though someone books your calendar, you still need to accept or reject a meeting. So there's like a middle layer in between, which gives you more control over your calendar. Because if someone like leaks your Calendly or Savical or Motion link like to the web, they could post it on Twitter, and suddenly hundreds of people could spam your calendar, right? And that's something I'm not looking forward to. So like all of the meetings, like I can literally post my link here, cal.com/peer, and nothing happens because I have like opt-in bookings, which means I manually confirm or reject them to be in my calendar. And that's something which I'm still surprised no one else has done. It's so obvious to me, because I want people to, you know, I want my link, it's in my Twitter bio, to be able to get in touch with people, right?
Yeah, definitely. So maybe in future when things get even more bigger, you can face that thing, right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I hope like people are checking already your website, cal.com/open, if you want to learn about how it is an open startup, and of course, very simple, like cal.com. And also you have a different font in your website, like Cal Sans. I guess it's Cal Sans. Yeah. So
it is.
like how did that start? Like, did you like do you wanted to make a different look overall? Like, how did that begin?
Yeah, well, I mean, so we bought cal.com pretty soon after we raised the first round of funding, and we thought about like, do we pay someone to make a logo, and then, you know, spend the same amount of money that we could pay like a really good artist to make an entire typography, right? So instead of having like a logo with fancy things, we just said, okay, let's just go with the name. Cal.com is amazing. We don't need an icon. We don't need like a symbol. So we saved the money on the symbol and all the creative process, and really focused on the typography. And and then, I mean, as an open source company, there's no benefit for us to hold back stuff. So we open sourced it and made it free. It goes under the most liberal open source license. You can use it in your own projects. It's under cal.com. It's like on GitHub, cal.com/font. So github.com. I mean, the response of the community was amazing. I mean, there's not many companies that open source other things that are not code. Like, I think we're one of the first ones to just open source straight up like typography. And my request was just to have like a really nice A, because obviously with cal.com, the A is a letter, and I just love the non-normal A, like the, what's it called, like the alpha A, and and that's kind of like the story.
Great, that's great to know. I think that will inspire a lot of designers and the product designers over here, like who are listening to this podcast. So it also plays a huge role in your entire product journey, I believe. Yeah.
For sure, yeah, and we can always reuse it, you know, and we can use it in advertisement in Google. Like we can use it in our own docs, and like just really make it like everything feels like it's ours, and everyone knows, you know, when you switch between different things, and now you don't have your brand font anymore. You know, that doesn't happen to us.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing everything about like how your journey has been evolved. So like few more minutes, we'll be finishing off this one. So like there are maintainers who want to make it like into commercial model, but there are still some maintainers who already have the commercial model, and there are maintainers who don't want to make commercial model at all. Like these are the three different kinds of people I have come across. So do you want to share any message like to them, like how commercialization can help open source project, or it's about the use case, or like how does it actually work?
Well, I don't know about free open source. Like I don't know a lot about FOSS. I wouldn't have the mental capacity to maintain something for that long without like recognition. And for me, payment is usually recognition. I know there's people who get donations. I don't think donations really scale, because it's good to have like initially like some recurring donations, but once millions of people start using a product, you literally have thousands of bucks, but that donations doesn't scale equal to the usage. So I think donations is not a sustainable way of providing support. And at the end of the day, commercializing doesn't mean you will go public as an open source company. Commercializing means you have enough resources to pay people to contribute for a 5 to 10 year time horizon. If we take a look at open source, like free open source projects, let's say, what is it, Log4? Was that the
Log4j?
What's the yeah, that was the vulnerability, the name of the vulnerability. But like, that would not probably, but like less likely happen in a commercial setting, because if you have a commercial setting and you hire the best engineers, they will find vulnerabilities much faster than if people just spend a weekend contributing on their own time and not being paid. So in that regard, I think commercial open source has a lot more longevity and security than free open source projects, and also recognition. It's great to be paid for your work.
Definitely. That breaks down a lot of things which people still are in a dilemma. And thanks for your time. I don't want to take much of your time. So Aviyel is also working in the similar direction to actually support and increase the longevity of a project. So that's the whole idea of Aviyel, and we are trying to bring in Web3 concept into Aviyel as well. You can read our light paper, which is on the homepage, aviyel.com, and you can get in touch with us with the email hello@aviyel.com if you are a maintainer, or if you are a contributor, or if you are anyone around open source. So you can get in touch with us and we'll be happy to speak with you. And once again, I thank Pierre for his time and for his knowledge. And it might really help a lot of people building startups to a contributor. Like everything you have covered in just 30 minutes. Thanks for that. And good to we would love to invite you once again to the platform, and maybe we can have a deeper conversation on Web3 and things which you mentioned before. Thanks for your time.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Ciao.
Yeah, good.